I was a homeless boy who woke a millionaire's daughter. What happened next was unbelievable. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I need to tell you something that still makes my chest tighten whenever I think about it. My name is Alec Rose, and what I'm about to share with you is not just a story. It's something that happened. Something that changed the way I see the world forever. It all started on one of those nights when the city feels colder than usual. Not just in temperature, but in spirit. You know, the kind where the streets are alive with lights and noise, but somehow you feel more alone than ever. That was the night I first noticed him. He was just a boy. Homeless. His clothes were thin and worn down, hanging off his small frame like they didn't belong to him anymore. His shoes had holes at the toes. His skin was covered in the kind of dirt you only get from sleeping on the ground night after night. And yet what struck me most wasn't how broken he looked, it was how invisible he was. People walked right past him as if he didn't exist, their eyes fixed ahead, not daring to acknowledge that he was even human. I remember standing there, frozen for a moment, because I couldn't look away. Something in his eyes caught me. They weren't just tired. They carried a weight, something I couldn't explain. Like he knew more than he should. Like he was carrying a secret the world would never believe. I didn't speak to him that night. I wanted to, but fear held me back. I kept walking, my footsteps echoing against the pavement, my heart heavy with guilt for leaving him there. I told myself he was just another homeless boy, one of many, and that I couldn't save everyone. But deep down, something in me knew this wasn't the last time I'd see him. Days passed, but his face stayed in my mind. And then, the strangest thing happened. I began hearing whispers, hushed conversations in cafes, murmurs on buses. They weren't talking about him directly, but about something else, about a girl. A girl from one of the wealthiest families in the city. The daughter of a millionaire who had fallen into a mysterious sleep that no doctor could explain. People said she hadn't woken in days, that her parents had brought in every specialist they could find, but nothing worked. And then one night, when I was walking home again, I saw him, the same boy. This time he was standing near the gates of that very mansion everyone had been whispering about. His shoulders were hunched, his hands shaking, but his eyes, those same heavy eyes, were locked on the house as though he felt something pulling him toward it. Before I could even process what I was seeing, a car slowed down in front of him. The window rolled down, and a man in a suit leaned out, his voice sharp and cutting. He told the boy to move along, that he didn't belong there, that the police would come if he didn't leave immediately. I could see the boy's head lower, his small frame trembling with shame. He didn't argue, he just turned and began to walk away. But in that moment, something inside me broke, because I knew he wasn't just loitering. He wasn't just lost. He was trying to get to that house for a reason. I don't know how I knew, but I did. It was in his eyes again, that haunting certainty. The next night I went back. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, maybe something bigger. But I found myself drawn there, to those iron gates in that massive house that felt like it belonged to another world entirely. And there he was again. This time I dared to approach. My voice trembled as I asked him what he was doing, why he kept coming back. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and in the faintest whisper, he told me something that sent chills down my spine. He said he could help her. The millionaire's daughter. The girl no one could wake. At first, I almost laughed. It sounded impossible, absurd even. How could a homeless boy with nothing to his name claim to do what entire teams of doctors and machines couldn't? But the way he said it, the way his voice carried, not just desperation but certainty, made my heart skip. He wasn't lying, he believed it. That was the moment I realized I was standing at the edge of something far bigger than I could understand. I didn't know what it was yet, but I felt it, the suspense, the danger, the weight of what was coming. And as the night air grew colder around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this boy's secret, whatever it was, would change everything. I couldn't sleep that night. His words replayed over and over in my head. I can help her. They weren't loud, not even confident, but they were steady, like he was telling me a truth that I wasn't ready to hear. How could this boy-hungry, ragged, overlooked by the world possibly hold an answer to a problem that money and science had failed to solve? I wanted to dismiss it, to shake my head and laugh it off, but something in me refused. His eyes, the way they carried that unshakable certainty, wouldn't let me rest. So the next evening, I went back again. I didn't know what I was searching for, but my feet carried me toward that mansion as if they were being pulled by something stronger than me. And when I arrived, there he was. The same boy, standing outside those tall iron gates, shivering under the glow of the streetlights. This time, I walked closer. He noticed me and looked startled, like he hadn't expected anyone to come back. His lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but no words came out. I could see the fear in his eyes. The fear of being mocked again, pushed aside, or worse, ignored. I told him softly that I believed he had something to say, and that he didn't need to be afraid of telling me. His chest rose and fell, and finally he whispered it again. I can wake her. I asked him how, but he just shook his head. You wouldn't believe me, he murmured. And then he turned his gaze back to the mansion as though his entire being was fixed on the girl lying inside. Before I could press further, the heavy crunch of footsteps broke the air. 2 guards came storming down the driveway, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Their eyes narrowed the second they saw him. You again? One of them barked. Didn't we tell you to stay away from here? The boy froze. His shoulders tensed, and I could see his body trembling under the weight of their anger. One of the guards shoved him back, hard enough that he stumbled into the fence. My instinct screamed to intervene, but my voice caught in my throat. They didn't care who he was. They only saw him as a nuisance, a threat to the peace of the wealthy. He tried to speak, his voice small, pleading. Please. I can help her. I know I can. The guards laughed, a cold, cruel sound that stung more than their words. You help her? You're nothing but a street rat. Get lost before we call the cops. I felt my stomach twist. The injustice of it burned in my chest. Here was a boy with nothing, offering the only thing he believed he had the power to save someone, and they crushed him under the weight of their judgment. But he didn't fight back. He didn't raise his voice or defend himself. Instead, he looked at them with eyes that carried more pain than anger. And then, slowly, he turned and walked away. I followed him, my heart pounding. Why don't you tell them how? I asked once we were far enough from the gates. He stopped, looked at me with hollow eyes and said, because people like me don't get listened to. They laugh, they hit, they chase me away. They'd rather let her die than believe someone like me could matter. Those words, they carved themselves into me, because deep down, I knew he was right. Over the next few days, the whispers in the city grew louder. The girl's condition worsened. Doctors were leaving the mansion in silence, their faces grim. No medicine worked. No machine could explain why she wouldn't wake. People said it was hopeless, that even all the money in the world couldn't save her. And all the while, that boy stayed close. I'd see him lingering near the mansion, never crossing the line, but always watching. His eyes carried that same strange pull, as if he was connected to her in some invisible way. One evening, I finally asked him again, "Why are you so sure you can save her?" This time, he looked at me with a quiet fire. "Because I've seen it before. I've felt it. Sometimes I know things I shouldn't know. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I do." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so unshaken, sent shivers through me. It wasn't a boast, it wasn't a lie, it was simply his truth. But the world doesn't care much for truths that come from the mouths of the powerless, and soon enough, his persistence brought him more than mockery, it brought danger. The next night, when he tried again to approach the mansion gates, the guards didn't just shove him away. This time, one grabbed him by the arm, dragging him down the steps. His voice rang out, louder than I'd ever heard it before. "She's dying! I can save her!" For a moment, the sound froze the air. Even the guards hesitated, their grips faltering as his words carried through the night. A light flicked on in one of the mansion's upper windows, and for the first time, someone inside had heard him. The guards exchanged uneasy glances, then pushed him down onto the pavement, warning him never to come back. But I knew things were about to change. Because once those words were spoken aloud, once the family inside had heard them, the boy's secret could no longer be ignored. And that was the moment I realized the story wasn't just his anymore. Somehow, some way, I was already part of it too. I will never forget that night, the night everything shifted. The guards had shoved him to the ground again, their harsh voices echoing through the empty street. But his words had slipped past them, carried into the mansion like a spark into dry wood. "She's dying! I can save her!" For a long moment, nothing happened. The only sound was his heavy breathing as he pushed himself back up, blood on his lip from where he'd hit the pavement. My own heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. I was certain the family inside would ignore it, that his voice would fade into the darkness like it always did. But then it happened. The great iron gate creaked open. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, his face pale and stern, his eyes locked onto the boy. He wasn't a guard, he was someone higher, someone closer to the family. He looked down at the boy with a mixture of disgust and curiosity, the kind of expression reserved for something you don't want to touch, but can't quite dismiss. "What did you say?" he asked sharply. The boy's voice trembled, but he didn't look away. "I said I can save her. Your daughter. Please, just let me try." The man's lips curled, as if the very idea was offensive. Behind him, the guards shook their heads. "He's nothing, sir. Just a vagrant causing trouble." For a moment, I thought that was it, that the gate would slam shut and the boy would be erased again, his words buried. But another voice called from inside the mansion, a woman's voice, fragile, desperate. "Wait." And then she appeared. The mother. Her hair was messy, her face streaked with tears, her body shaking with the weight of sleepless nights. I'll never forget the way her eyes locked onto the boy, as though in that instant she didn't see a stranger or a beggar, she saw a chance, the tiniest sliver of hope. "Bring him in," she whispered. The guards protested immediately. "Madam, no, it's dangerous," he could. "Bring him in," she snapped, her voice breaking but firm. And just like that, the world tilted. The boy, dirty, trembling, unwanted by everyone, was led through the gates of the mansion. I followed as far as I dared, my breath caught in my chest, because I knew this was the moment everything would change. Inside, the mansion glowed with wealth. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, Marble floors reflected the dim light, and the air carried the smell of medicine and fear. The boy looked out of place, swallowed by the grandeur, but his eyes stayed locked on one thing: the staircase leading up to her room. When we entered, the room was suffocatingly quiet. Machines beeped beside the girl's bed, her skin pale as wax, her chest rising faintly with shallow breaths. Doctors lingered in the corners, their faces tight with frustration, their arms crossed as if daring anyone to challenge their failure. The boy stepped forward, his feet barely making a sound on the rug. Gasps filled the air as if his very presence was an insult. One of the doctors scoffed. "This is absurd. Madam, you can't possibly," but the mother silenced him with a single look. She turned back to the boy, her voice trembling. "If you can do something, anything, please." The boy hesitated, his hands shaking. You could see the weight pressing down on him, every insult, every shove, every moment of being invisible. And now, all eyes were on him. He moved closer to the bed. The father bristled, his fists clenched. "This is madness. We're letting a child off the street touch her?" But the boy didn't stop. His eyes softened as he reached the edge of the bed. Slowly, almost reverently, he extended his hand and laid it on hers. The room erupted. Shouts filled the air, accusations, disbelief, outrage. "Stop him! He's delusional! This is dangerous!" The father surged forward, but the mother held him back, her hands trembling as she whispered, "Wait." And then something changed. The girl's fingers twitched. At first it was so slight I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then her chest rose deeper, fuller, as though her lungs were remembering how to breathe again. A sound tore through the silence, a cough, weak but real. The room froze. Every eye turned to her, wide with shock. Her eyelids fluttered, and then, slowly, she opened them. The doctors rushed forward, stumbling over their words. The father fell silent, his face draining of color. And the mother collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she whispered her daughter's name over and over. And there he was, the boy, standing over her, his hand still holding hers, his eyes glistening with something I had never seen in him before. Not despair, not shame, but quiet, undeniable proof that he had been right all along. For a moment, it felt like the world itself had stopped to witness what he had done. But miracles don't erase prejudice. They don't silence doubt. The doctors began muttering frantically, insisting there had to be a medical explanation. The father's jaw tightened, his pride wounded deeper than his relief could reach, and I could see it, the shift in the air. This wasn't going to end the way it should, because when the powerless prove the powerful wrong, the powerful don't thank them. They push back harder. I knew in that moment that even though the girl had woken, the boy's fight was far from over. I swear, for one breathtaking second, it felt like the world had been healed. The girl opened her eyes, her small hand clinging weakly to the boy's as though she'd been waiting for him all along. Her mother sobbed like her heart had been cracked wide open, whispering her daughter's name through tears that wouldn't stop. I felt my own throat tighten, tears burning behind my eyes. But then, the miracle turned sour. The doctors didn't cheer, they didn't marvel. They muttered, their faces twisted with something I couldn't quite name at first. But then I saw it. It wasn't relief. It was anger. Anger that this boy, this nameless child from the streets, had done what they could not. One of them shook his head violently. "Coincidence," he barked. "The body sometimes wakes spontaneously. This has nothing to do with him." Another chimed in, voice sharp with authority. We can't allow this nonsense to spread. It'll ruin our reputation. Madam, sir, don't let yourselves be deceived by a stunt. The father's face hardened, his jaw so tight it looked carved from stone. He had been silent through it all, but now he stepped forward, his voice trembling with rage. You mean to tell me you let a vagrant touch my daughter's hand, and now you claim it was him who brought her back? No, I won't accept this. I won't have it. The boy stood frozen, his shoulders shaking, his eyes wide as all the gratitude he'd earned was stripped away before his very eyes. He had done the impossible. He had given back what no one else could. And still, they refused to see him. The mother tried to protest, her sobs turning frantic. But you saw, she woke the moment he— Enough! The father roared, his voice shattering the fragile calm in the room. She woke because it was her time, not because of him. He turned on the boy then, his eyes burning like fire. Get him out of my house, now. The guards moved in immediately, their heavy boots pounding the floor. The boy flinched as their hands gripped his arms, dragging him back from the bed where the girl had just opened her eyes. She reached weakly toward him, her lips parting in a soundless plea, but they tore him away before she could speak. I couldn't stand it. Wait, I cried out, stepping forward. You all saw what happened, don't you dare deny it. But my voice was swallowed by theirs. The room filled with noise doctors insisting, guards barking orders, the father demanding silence, the mother begging to be heard. And in the middle of it all, the boy's face haunted, pale, breaking. They shoved him out the door, down the long hallway, and back into the night as though he were nothing but trash to be thrown away. His lip was bleeding again, his eyes wide with disbelief. But he didn't fight. He didn't scream. He just let himself be dragged, his silence louder than any words he could have spoken. I followed them out, my heart hammering against my ribs. I couldn't let it end like this. On the steps outside, I caught up to him. The guards released him with a final shove, muttering curses under their breath. He stumbled, caught himself, and then turned back toward the glowing mansion with a look that tore at me. Not hatred, not anger, but deep, hollow sorrow. I told them, he whispered, his voice breaking. I told them I could help, and I did, but they'll never see me. Not really. I didn't know what to say. My throat was thick. My words stuck somewhere between fury and despair. I wanted to scream at the injustice, to shake the house until its walls cracked. But instead, all I could do was stand beside him, feeling the weight of his pain as if it were my own. The city carried on around us. Cars hummed past, lights flickered in windows, laughter spilled from restaurants. To the world, nothing had changed. But I knew better. Something enormous had happened in that house, something miraculous, and the world had chosen to look away. The boy turned to me then, his eyes glistening with tears he refused to shed. Do you understand now? He asked softly. It doesn't matter what I do. They'll never let someone like me be the reason for a miracle. And I hated it, but he was right. Still, I couldn't let it go. But you did it, I whispered, my voice fierce even through the ache in my chest. I saw it. I'll never forget it. For the first time, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't joy, it was something else. Resignation, maybe. Or hope too fragile to hold on to. The night grew colder as we stood there, the mansion looming behind us like a fortress of denial. Somewhere inside, the girl was awake, breathing, alive again. But out here, the boy who had saved her was still nothing more than a shadow in the eyes of the world. And as I looked at him, Standing small and fragile against the sprawling gates, I realized this wasn't just his fight anymore. His story had become mine too. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. What they did to him wasn't just about him. It was about something larger, something older than both of us. It was about how society decides who matters and who doesn't, who gets remembered and who gets erased. And I knew, deep down, that his story wasn't finished yet. Something inside me told me that the world wasn't done testing him, that the cruelest part was still to come. I never forgot that night. The image of that boy, small, fragile, but holding the power to change everything, haunted me long after the mansion lights had faded behind us. I can still hear the way the guard's boots echoed on the marble, the way his body shook as they dragged him out, the way his eyes held both hope and heartbreak all at once. I tried to convince myself that maybe, in time, people would realize the truth. Maybe the parents would admit what had happened. Maybe the doctors would confess what they saw with their own eyes. But the next morning, the world had already twisted the story into something else. Headlines filled the news. Miracle recovery stuns doctors. Millionaire's daughter wakes against all odds. Not a single word about him. Not a whisper about the boy who had walked in with nothing but faith in his own hands. It was as though he had never existed. That silence cut deeper than any lie. Because it wasn't just silence, it was erasure. They had erased him, erased his courage, erased his truth. And I realized then that this wasn't new. This wasn't the first time a story like his had been buried, and it wouldn't be the last. I searched for him in the days that followed. I went back to the streets where I had first seen him, the alleys where the shadows clung to broken walls. Sometimes I thought I caught a glimpse, just the back of a boy vanishing into the crowd. But whenever I called out, there was no answer. It was as if the city itself had swallowed him whole. And yet, even without him there, his presence lingered. It lingered in the way I noticed children huddled on corners, invisible to those who walked past. It lingered in the way people tightened their grip on their bags when a black boy walked too close. It lingered in the way injustice carried itself so casually, so quietly, like it was the air we all breathed. One night, I stood outside the mansion again. The gates glowed under soft lamps. The windows glittered with warmth. And inside, laughter drifted through the glass. The girl was alive, smiling, moving, her life restored. And she had no idea that the boy who saved her was nowhere to be found. The mother had tears in her eyes still, but not the kind I remembered. These were tears of joy, relief. She looked at her daughter as though nothing else mattered. Maybe for her, nothing else did, but I knew the truth, and here's the part that broke me. Knowing the truth wasn't enough, because the world didn't want the truth. It wanted a version of events that fit into neat headlines and clean, acceptable narratives. Stories that didn't ask us to face the ugliness of what we choose to ignore. I stood there for a long time, shivering in the cold, asking myself why. Why did it take a miracle for them to even look at him? And why, after the miracle, did they still refuse to see him? I'll tell you why. Because in their eyes, he was never meant to be the hero. Heroes aren't homeless. Heroes aren't poor. Heroes aren't black boys wandering the streets. At least, that's what the world tells us. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt in that room when he touched her hand and gave her back her life. And no matter how loudly the world tries to deny it, that truth lives in me. Sometimes I wonder where he is now. Did he keep walking the streets, invisible and unheard? Did he find shelter? Did he give up on the world that had already given up on him? Or maybe, just maybe, He carried on, holding that strange light inside him, saving others in ways no one would ever see. I'll never know for sure. But I do know this, his story changed me. Because once you witness something like that, once you see the way injustice silences even the most extraordinary acts, you can't go back to living blind. You start to see the cracks everywhere, the people pushed aside, the truths no one wants to face. And maybe that's why I'm telling you this now. Because this isn't just his story, it's ours. It's the story of every child who's been ignored, every voice that's been silenced, every miracle that's been buried under denial and pride. I keep asking myself, how many more times will this happen? How many more lives will be saved, changed, or destroyed in silence? Because the world refuses to see the worth of the people standing right in front of them. The boy taught me something that night, though he never said the words. He taught me that even when the world refuses to believe you, your truth still matters. Even when they strip you of recognition, your impact remains. So maybe that's what I can give him. What I can give back, my voice. This story. The memory of what I saw, what I lived, what he gave to us all. And maybe, if enough of us refuse to let stories like his be erased, then one day the world won't need a miracle to recognize the humanity in every child, in every person. So I'll leave you with this question, the same one I ask myself every single day. The next time the world pushes someone aside, will you be the one who turns away? Or will you be the one who chooses to believe? Because sometimes, belief is the only thing that keeps the truth alive.